There we go.
Now we're live. Welcome back to another edition of Unverified. We officially have gone green. Tony Donohue, David Land, Kyle Cupperson with you, and there is so much to talk about. David enjoying some time away from Indianapolis. Alex Palou clinches the championship to nobody's surprise. Will Power gets the victory. Oh, hold on. Sorry. Will Power gets the win on Sunday. We've got some controversy as well. I don't know why YouTube's always muted, and then there it wasn't. But a lot to discuss. Gentlemen, what a weekend we had in IndyCar. I thought it was a very entertaining race throughout. We obviously saw some drama, some elbows out racing. We saw a race to the end with Lundgaard, Alex Palou, as well as Will Power, who picked up the victory. But let's start with Will Power. Obviously, the conversation has been, where is he going to be in 2026? And how much has the turmoil and what Team Penske has gone through this year led to this point? Obviously, there's been some bad luck with Team Penske. Some would call it karma. Some say it's just part of racing. But Will Power victorious. I don't think there was anybody of the 704,000 people that were watching upset with Will Power getting back to victory lane for the second straight year at Portland. David, your thoughts on Will Power, just kind of reminding everybody exactly who he is.
You know, it's funny. I should have brought up this going into the weekend, and the reason I didn't was I remembered that Scott McLaughlin had won at Milwaukee. I probably should have still brought it up, though, because I thought it was notable that Will Power last won a race in Portland, and that was his last win. And I kind of said, well, you know, if you circled one on the calendar where Penske probably could break this streak of theirs, Portland would kind of be the one that I would circle, and Will Power would be the driver I would expect to win. So was it super surprising that Will Power was the one to do it? No. I mean, he's had the best season the entire year for Team Penske. And yeah, he didn't have a great Indianapolis 500, but no one had a great Indianapolis 500 for Team Penske. So it is so weird. And honestly, and I had a bunch of grammar police coming at me on Twitter when I quoted him directly from the Fox broadcast saying, oh, that's present perfect tense. He didn't say he's leaving. Well, they clearly didn't watch that interview, because it sure sounded to me like Will Power was kind of saying goodbye to Team Penske and Verizon there. So I don't know. I'm like, it's all weird, isn't it? Because, you know, especially with all the turmoil and turnover that you mentioned at Team Penske, you know, I think we came to the conclusion a couple of weeks ago that it would seem like logical that you would keep Will Power, considering just how tumultuous a year that they've had and how many senior members of Team Penske have gone. But no, it seems like Will's gone as well. So that opens us up to a lot of weird situations, especially the fact that Will confirmed that he can't even officially talk to teams until the 31st, essentially what, qualifying day at the Big Machine Grand Prix, right? Am I crazy for that? Is that, I'd have to look at that, but I mean, like, that is literally the last weekend of the season, which is hanging him out to dry.
I believe 31st is the day of the race, correct?
Oh, it's the day of the race. Yeah, it's the day of the race.
It's probably when that checkered flag flies. So, you know, are we going to flock to Will Power to interview him? And so are a bunch of team owners to start talking contract negotiations. Obviously, there has been rumors, there has been speculation. We will wait for that in the Dude Bro sources here on where we think Will Power will go. Obviously, what hit home to me was one of my favorite songs of all time is Foo Fighters' Everlong. And when which is synonymous for kind of the end, right? David Letterman played that on his last show telecast. They did a highlight montage of all of David Letterman's highlights set to that. So I was like, there's a little bit of writing on the wall right there. And I think Will's taking the approach that he's not coming back. Not saying that won't happen. Penske could still come to terms and say, you know what, let's bring him back. A big thing that happened on Sunday was the delay in the start. They moved it back to 37 past the hour. Live Golf, which is ironically here at Indy this week and going to have some drivers out there. David and Kyle, I'll ask you both. We're trying to find it, right? And I've got the app up and I'm watching David's stream and FS1's got it going on. Fox is showing golf, horse racing's being moved. All all the boomers that love golf, horse racing, and IndyCar, all 7 of them were probably scattered brain of what was going on.
I tried to look. I couldn't find any. I was scouring Twitter. I was like, where are the mad horse fans?
And
way more angry IndyCar fans, I have to say.
You're on Twitter. You should have looked on Facebook. That's where they all were. But nonetheless, they move it. And the first race under Fox, a third ownership, basically starts on FS1.
I hate to tell. I mean, get the list, Tony, because I feel like I'm going to say it again. I told you, or you told us so. I mean, I was like, well, you're never going to have to worry about FS1 again with them owning the series. And I mean, the first, you want to talk about a horse racing reference? The first horsey out of the gate was FS1. And yeah, how ironic, like Live Golf is in Indianapolis this weekend. I think you mentioned on Twitter, Tony, that there's going to be some drivers making appearances on behalf of Live Golf this weekend at the Brickyard Crossing. So like, man, what timing, what incredible timing. And yes, the scramble to like find the channel that the race was on and kind of the realization that it was going to be on FS1 was like, like Twitter, Twitter is an awful website. It's an awful website. Although Kyle is winning on Twitter, and I'm sure we're going to eventually talk about his misadventures on Twitter. Yeah, I figured. But it's good. Twitter is good for one thing, and that is snark. And boy, oh boy. I mean, when the teams are letting it rip, I mean, like Chip Ganassi Racing put out some absolute bangers, especially the Ron Paul one that got deleted. I was so disappointed that got deleted, but there were some bangers on Twitter about that whole controversy. And it's I don't know, it's weird, isn't it? Because like in the past, and I saw people bringing this up, that like, ordinarily you would just start the race on Peacock and people would be like, oh, I just got to turn it on Peacock or whatever. And, we're kind of back to channel flipping and avoiding golf and all this stuff. But I would certainly hope, and maybe you wouldn't be able to, fix things now as they are. But for next year, especially considering that the schedule is not out, we're still waiting on the schedule, that now that Fox has an ownership stake in the series, they will maybe have a little bit more of an idea of like, hey, maybe we should make sure that IndyCar has enough time, if our live sports programming is going long before IndyCar, that we're going to have time to start the race. So I don't know. It was disappointing to say the least.
I think when they bumped over the horsey racing, that would have given them more pre-race, no? Because I remember I flipped FS1 and it was still pre-race. I don't think any of the actual racing got like messed up on Big Fox, right?
No, it did. It did. That first lap in which Santino Ferrucci smacked into the wall, that they didn't come back until they were under yellow. So the start was missed on Fox. And I tweeted this. I said, kudos to them for at least saying, look, all right, we're going to delay the start so at least our fans can watch the start live. And then that didn't even happen. So even though they delayed it, what was another 5 minutes? What was the difference? I mean, your window probably is tight. I get that. But, I mean, I don't know. You probably could have waited another 5 minutes to go green and had the initial start on Big Fox.
I mean, I wasn't watching on Big Fox, but I mean, a few other Drew Graves just said they missed the first 7 laps. I mean, I was on FS1 until the point that they switched, and it was like they were coming to the restart after the Santino Ferrucci crash. And I felt like it was one of those IndyCar yellows where it was really, really long with the caution. So like they missed, if it had been green, they would have probably missed the first 10, 11 laps of the race. It obviously wasn't green. But yeah, it was tough. And also I feel like we should mention this because it might get like buried a little bit when we're talking about the TV providers. Many local Fox affiliates did not choose to air. And I just mentioned the Chicago market, which of course is one of IndyCar's bigger markets if you don't know that. But obviously there were more markets than just that. New Orleans was a big one. I think even Fort Wayne didn't get the race because they were showing Bears football. So a lot of local Fox affiliates were not showing the race live, which is concerning.
Yeah, that's crazy. I did see a lot of that on social media. That's crazy. Not playing. Yeah. What do you do about that? Like what?
You can't, because the affiliates choose what goes on the air. And I mean, it makes sense that a local NFL team is going to get a higher TV rating in a place that's not in the Midwest. Well, then Chicago's in the Midwest, but like, you know what I mean? Like, it's going to get a higher TV rating regardless. There's pretty much nowhere. I mean, maybe with the Colts being as bad as they are right now, maybe if the Colts went up against an IndyCar race and it was going to be on a preseason game was going to be on Fox, maybe. But even then, I think they probably, I mean, would 59 choose? Tony, you're more ingrained in the local media than we are. I mean, what would 59 choose? Would they choose a Colts preseason game or an IndyCar race to show live?
Oh, Colts preseason game, 100%. This town,
are we going to end up
picks the Colts over? I mean, Colts are number one no matter what, unless it was the Indy 500, which obviously wouldn't line up with it being in May. But yeah, if that was the Colts, now they wouldn't schedule that because I think Fox 59 would bid on the preseason game because it's a Colts produced broadcast. That's why you have Greg Rakestraw on the call. We're going really inside baseball here, but it's a local broadcast. The preseason games are, so you can bid. So they're probably going, oh, well, we're going to bid on the ones where we don't have IndyCar. But yeah, I 100% it would be Colts. And I don't know moving forward. I mean, it's just unfortunate. Remember a couple of years ago at Detroit, I think it was Belle Isle, maybe 2021, they got preempted for like men's lacrosse. Like these things happen. And, you know, you look at the ratings that Live Golf gets, and they're not that great. But the rating came out today just north of 700,000, which was interesting to me because you did have the initial start kind of delayed, and then Live Golf was on. You had a lot of people, some that just shouldn't have been saying anything, to say, hey, let's boycott this race. Don't watch it on Fox. Watch it on a different pirated streaming app. Don't buy the merchandise. Just a bunch of absolute BS telling people over what, you know, the Department of Homeland Security mentioned last week. You know, but I still thought the rating was right where IndyCar is, and it peaked over 900,000. It looked like they're late in the afternoon. So this is like the basement, right? 700,000 is your basement for IndyCar. You got to go up from there. You can't lay an egg and have Milwaukee be under 700,000. Like 700,000 is the absolute basement. It's not the median. It's not the middle where you should be, where you can kind of go up and down. 700,000 is the extreme basement, I think, of where IndyCar ratings should be. And you've got to just keep going and never look back.
All right, Tony. Well, you mentioned it's the basement. We have facts and figures. NASCAR Man on Twitter, on our favorite website, the great Twitter, actually put out a chart just a couple of minutes before we went on the air about the average television viewers in racing. The Indianapolis 500 is P1, 300,000 people over the Daytona 500. You have to go back to position 33 to find the next IndyCar race, which is St. Petersburg, then back to position 55 for IndyCar in Detroit, 59 for IndyCar at Gateway, then Indy 500 qualifying at position 66, Barber at 68, and then, this is crazy, everybody. So from position 72 to 79 on the average television numbers for racing this year, it's all IndyCar. Mm-hmm. 781,000 Road America, 775,000 Mid-Ohio, 730,000 Toronto, 730,000 Laguna, 719,000 Iowa, 710,000 IndyGP, 700,000 Portland, 700,000 Thermal. The only other two IndyCar races below that are Iowa in 87th place and Long Beach, which is the bottom of the barrel, at 500,000 people in 88th position. So a vast majority of the IndyCar season, all within 800,000 to 700,000. It's actually unbelievably consistent about how consistent the IndyCar number is.
That's almost fishy. We'd have to like almost look at the average, you know, just Fox television like number on an average Sunday, right? Like
I thought what was fishy was back-to-back weeks of what, 783,000 exactly? Like
34.
734,000 exactly. Like, wait a minute. And obviously that Long Beach number went up against the Masters, which was huge. Obviously the Thermal number was tainted, one, because you're going against the NCAA tournament, and two, because obviously the feed cut out and it went dark for however long. But yeah, I mean, I think you got to keep, like, obviously the hardcore IndyCar fan base is 700 to 750,000 people. The hardcore, or the average Indianapolis 500 viewer, is obviously way higher than that. But if I'm Fox, I continue to market every race. Obviously, they spent a lot of time on the 500 in St. Pete. I market more drivers coming up in 2026. My ads need to be more relevant of what's going on. Can the Cinderella story of Renus VK continue? Can anybody top Alex Palou? Palou Award's been hot. Like, I feel like some of their advertisements, their promos were a bit outdated throughout the years. So just keeping those relevant. Obviously, the one that we talked about of can we catch the fastest man? But since then, I want to see some more updated promos talking about like the Cinderella stories, or can Upstart Prema, which maybe doesn't move the needle, but mention some other storylines heading into the race in your 30-second commercial.
Hey, we can bring back Indy Rivals, Rasmussen versus Connor Daly. We could do it. This could be the next ad. Indy Rivals.
That's a sneaky link.
Nobody's
there,
ever
buddy,
thought of Indy Rivals before.
Last week. All right, well, I guess we'll jump into it, and we could talk a little willpower more so in Dude Bros sources. But Connor Daly, Christian Rasmussen, back and forth, elbows out racing, making contact. Connor then tried to take Rasmussen out, and then Rasmussen finished him off. It was a pretty nasty looking accident. Glad that Connor's okay, first and foremost. I've been talking about some elbows out racing. I was a little upset that Connor went back to Twitter and started babbling again like he did with Santino. Like, just go confront him. Go do it. Like let's just boom. I mean, obviously it would have benefited Bob Pockers because he'd had the camera ready, but I'm kind of over and McLaughlin is and Devlin, they're both guilty of this too. I'm kind of over hey, we get into it on the track and then I'm going to go to Twitter. And I know that you're frustrated as soon as you get out of the car, like Connor was, because he's out of the race and Christian's still going.
Yeah, but Connor had a whole race to cool down is the other point too, right? Like, he had a whole race to sit at the hauler and think about it. Like, he wasn't that hot. He could have went and confronted him. I agree with you.
I told David this. I said, I'm kind of tired of the Twitter beefs. Let's have some beef. Let's be men about it. Let's go, and I'm not saying go fight each other, but yell and scream. What do we see every week in NASCAR? I mean, Austin Hill probably has been spit on more than any driver in the entire world because of his antics, which we could talk about towards the end of the show. But I'm just saying, look, I mean, let's have some drama, and let's not take it to X/Twitter.
Well, and the only thing that I had a problem with, well, I am in the camp of Connor, just hit somebody, please. Just go smack him. I can't wait to listen to Speed Street tomorrow, I'm going to be honest. But, like, come on, hit him. And I would say this is that, like, the most PC interview he gave was on Fox, which I was like, because his IMS radio one was great. His Twitter response was great. Like, why did you pull back in front of the TV audience? If you at least give us a soundbite, So that's kind of how I feel about that. And I get it. Like, he's probably protecting his sponsor, and of course, Connor would know better than anybody else. You don't know what's going to happen next year. So, you want to mind your P's and Q's, but I don't know. I mean, it was weird, like that whole situation. And the more you kind of watch it back, I feel like Race Control just lost control of that one. And I think it was disappointing. And I get it. It was very quick. It had happened within a lap and a half where it escalated. And I'm kind of curious. This is what I'm really curious about, because Race Control retroactively gave Kiffin Simpson an avoidable contact penalty for the crash in the beginning of Laguna Seca. If I was calling balls and strikes, I would have given Connor a penalty for avoidable contact for running into Rasmussen in the festival curves. Now, of course, he didn't get back to the start finish line on that lap because he tried to pass Rasmussen around the outside, and Rasmussen did not back out, and then we saw the result of that.
Well,
but I wonder.
Not only didn't back out, but just didn't do anything. Didn't act like he wasn't even there.
Correct. Yes.
So as Race Control, when you look at the next incident in the festival curves, after Rasmussen already put Connor off, is there not? Do both of them deserve a penalty? Is there no action taken because they kind of police themselves by just going
They did take no action on Rasmussen.
Sometimes when it's 1-1, they're professional drivers. They'll handle it themselves. So when it goes 1-1 like that, you say, all right, they pretty much penalized each other because they're not gaining time, and it looks like they've handled it.
Well, they didn't.
I would say this about both Connor and Christian, who Connor mentioned they like each other. Despite the fact that Connor was booted from ECR, obviously not for Rasmussen, but that's a former ride of his or former team of his. What I would say is two things here. One, I think that they are both mature enough to come together, whether it's via a text, a phone call, or in Milwaukee to discuss it. Because what happened last year with Christian Rasmussen? He got a penalty when he punted Graham Rahal going into turn 3 in Milwaukee. And we get to an oval, and that wall's a little bit harder when you hit it. So I think it'll all be cleared. I wish they would have just cleared it up right there and yelled and screamed at each other after the race a little bit. That didn't happen. As far as the inconsistency inside of race control, well, boys, we have a whole offseason to discuss that here, starting in 3 weeks. So, I
might not have to worry about it. They're just going to throw everybody out anyway.
Yeah, I guess
one
of the last races we're going to deal with this race control. So, yeah.
Allegedly.
I
mean, we don't know any of the details about that, right? I mean, again, we've got like 6.5 months to figure that out, but do we know anything? We don't.
I'm going to read some comments here. We're going to bring Connor some boxing gloves. That's funny. I'm part of minority and think Connor did it to himself. Mentioned that on his channel to him, and he trashed me, says Iceman. Somebody is saying, who was the ECR team radio guy that said Daly ran out of talent? Ironically enough, that is Christian Spotter, who also spotted for Connor Daly. In the recent past, that's Packy Wheeler, who is a very good spotter, has won Indianapolis 500 multiple times. Again, I think we've talked about this kind of when we went back to the Nolan situation at Gateway. It's heat of the moment. It's heat of the battle. You're not thinking about everybody in the world listening over the radio or possibly Fox playing it. But yeah, you know what? There was some drama. I wanted more, but I guess we'll take what we can get coming out of Portland there with what we saw with Rasmussen and then Scott Dixon. Scott Dixon punting Joseph Newgarden as well.
This is absolutely true. This comment, Rasmussen was literally on Speed Street last week.
Yeah,
I can't.
They were golfing together. They golfed together on Thursday at Pebble Beach.
That's crazy. So the fact that it didn't result in a conversation, like at the track that day, it resulted in Connor adding Christian on Twitter is crazy.
Well, he added him during the race. So, like, unless Connor was, or unless Christian was on his phone in the car, he wasn't going to see it anyway.
So crazy.
So, I mean, like, it is what it is. I mean, the big problem I have with this whole thing is not so much the reaction of the drivers. I don't really care about that. I mean, I get it. I mean, like, from the perspective of, like, viral moment. Yeah, you want people swinging and falling off their cars, and like I say the NASCAR Xfinity Series. And even the TV ratings show that 300,000 people typically tune into that over IndyCar anyway. But like the problem I had with it was the escalation and the point that it escalated to where somebody hit the wall at 130 miles an hour. Now, again, to Tony's point, is this going to carry over into Milwaukee? No, nor should it. But I don't know. I think I just don't like seeing stuff like that. I think you can't be doing that in open wheel cars. And quite frankly, you shouldn't be doing it. Like Austin Hill caused an enormous crash at Watkins Glen this weekend. And like, that's unacceptable to me. And it's especially unacceptable in these type of cars. You just can't be doing it.
Let me ask you this, David. We've seen it this year where we thought maybe, I think Kirkwood and Power at Detroit, obviously Scott McLaughlin and Devlin. I think some fans are looking for that Hubba Bubba balloon blow up where these guys get in the face and they're yelling and all this stuff. Why aren't we seeing that? Is it a sponsorship thing? Is it the fact that these guys are all friends? Like we see it in the NBA sometimes where it can be too soft and everybody's high-fiving, but why do you think, David, we're not seeing these kind of fisticuffs after a race?
Because it's the guys crashing each other for 20th.
Yeah.
I mean, like that's, because you mentioned Scott and Devlin. The only times those two have ever been around each other has not been racing for a win. Like they've been racing for 22nd place when they've run into each other. And the same thing, Connor and Rasmussen, it was 17th. I think you'd see a very different reaction. Let's say, for example, Palou and Lundgaard crashed each other, or Palou and Power crashed each other. Let's say Palou gets around, Lundgaard, and then, you get the two guys side by side for the lead, and they crash each other. We know Will Power's a hothead. If he gets out of that car, he's going right. He already did that in Mid-Ohio after a practice session. So if he'd been racing for his job and racing for a win, but like, that's the thing, is that, and we can kind of, I feel like this is going to be an off-season discussion too, is that, like, I think this was one of the best. I think this was probably the best, most exciting road course race of the year. I think Thermal Club's close, but everybody hates Thermal Club, so I just will pretend like Thermal Club didn't happen. I thought, start to finish, this was a pretty entertaining race, but still, we didn't ultimately get that battle for the win. And if you don't have a lot of opportunities to have battles for the win, where you have real stakes and real reasons to care, both for the fans and for the drivers, about what's the result of the incidents that might or might not happen, of course you're not going to get a fight. Like, and to be fair to Christian and to be fair to Connor, and then, if we go back to Devlin and Scott earlier this year, like, they're not going to, like, look like idiots fighting, because what is everyone going to say? What would I say? I'd say, you morons, you guys are fighting over 20th place. How about you guys go win a race and then start fighting, guys? So it's a double-edged sword. I understand that. But, like, again, the reason we don't see that is that, a lot of the most valuable positions aren't as hotly contested as they probably should be.
Well, I think we would all love some battles up front towards the lead at the end of races. Hey, are those boat propellers? You're at the lake?
Well, yeah. I mean, like, listen, I thought about sitting outside, but then I realized. I
figured you'd have your toes in the water, sitting on the dock with, like, a light, have, like, your brother holding up the light for you out there. I mean, his arm would have been dead by about 10 minutes. But
anyway, there's too many bugs. The light of the laptop would attract the bugs, and we don't need. I don't need that. That's fine.
So Will Power wins a race that he won last year as well. As we know, and he mentioned this in May, not a lot of talk in the media about his contract going into the 500, coming out of the 500. But now, as we're into August, and he's not supposed to be talking, other people are talking for him. There's a reason why you hire Oriol Servia as your agent. I know Racer had an article last week with basically every team with a possible connection to Will Power. David, as we stand right now, and maybe we roll this to a Dude Bro source, where do you see Will Power ending up? Because I've always been under the impression that he's going to come back. He's going to be the top championship finisher for Penske. He's now won a race this year. He won 3 last year. Why not bring him back? Then you get to Portland. David Malukas is in the Gallagher car. There are some other small rumors starting to trickle through the cracks. And then he wins, kind of says, I don't know what's going on. I haven't really heard from him. I just want to know. Sets his winning tweet and Instagram to Everlong. If you were a betting man, David, right now, where will Will Power land in 2026?
Won't be at Penske. I think I am 99.9% sure he's not at Penske next year, because otherwise, why is he talking about not knowing until the 31st? Why is he talking about having to negotiate? Why is he getting out of the car after his first win in a year and saying essentially goodbye to Penske and Verizon, and then going in the post-race press conference and saying, if anyone doesn't know, I think I know how to effing drive, then, look at just look at the last couple of races. So I do not think he will be driving for Penske next year. So, and that kind of narrows your options a little bit, as we know. I mean, there's always the possibility that a completely random out of the blue seat opens up. And, anything is possible. Anything is possible. I think if you're Will Power, I personally, unless you can get to McLaren, I think you want to be driving a car with an H on it, especially if you are a street course merchant like he is. Just generally speaking, the tracks that Will Power excels at are the tracks that a Honda engine excels at. So, but even then, your options are limited. Graham Rahal, I think, recently commented about potentially wanting to bring Will Power to Rahal, Letterman, Lanigan. There's some questions about whether or not Devlin will come back for next year. So there might or might not be a seat open there. There's always the constant question and mark about Andretti. It sounds more and more like maybe Marcus Ericsson is going to stay after all, which, great for Marcus if that's the case, because, we were hearing a month ago that he was going to get bought out of that contract and all sorts of wacky things were going to happen. And then is there any other place that, could open up, or would there be an option for him to go to? I mean, you could go get really freaking wacky, which I don't believe would happen. But, how about Chip opens up a fourth open car and, you try to bump Prema out of the field? That's maybe, probably not, though. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah. That's kind of where I stand right now on the whole thing. I don't think he'll be driving for Penske. I think that much is absolutely clear.
Yeah, Rahal is what I keep hearing. And to your point, I mentioned this on my podcast. Kyle won't get this reference because he's young, but I feel like we're late in the stages of Mario Brothers, where you've got like 9 different tunnels you can go down, and if you go down this Mario tunnel, Brothers. the original one on regular Nintendo. All right, so if he goes down this tunnel, which lands at this team, then this can happen, and there's like 9 of those scenarios, right? Rahal is what keeps coming to mind, but I want to expand on your point a little bit. What are the chances that a McLaren or a Ganassi sees the opportunity to go get Will Power? Hey, we can fund this car. Obviously, we have the money to do it. Chip does. Zach Brown does. And then you are trying to out-qualify a Prema. Could we see, because I think there's certainly a chance of some amendments to where you're not going to send 2 Prema cars home, especially when maybe they're up for sale. They don't have hardcore sponsorship on that car. And are you going to send the newest team home, or are you going to send somebody that people are going to that race to probably see in Will Power?
That's a very interesting point that you brought up, that are we banking on Prema being on the grid next year? Yeah. By the way, I feel like I should point out Drew Graves had a great comment about what jersey Flava Flav was wearing this weekend. And it was not a Verizon Team Penske jersey. It was a 28 Andretti jersey. So does Flava Flav pay attention to the rumors and speculation? I don't know. I can only speculate about it. But
I think that's a really funny point that, think about it. Without charters, this would be wide open. This would be a pretty easy thing to just have resolved. I think
he would be at Ganassi already. I think if that was
is that comment at St. Pete that I keep clinging towards, is when he signed with Servia and he mentioned to the media that it was mainly for Fernando Alonso's contacts in WEC, right? So there's a possibility here that he just goes sports car racing. There's a possibility he just takes a stab at the 24 Hours of Le Mans and does a lot of things that he hasn't really done yet. He hasn't actually, I believe, ran any endurance races with his time in Penske. I think he's been solely focused on IndyCar. So that could happen. And I mean, when you look at it, if Andretti, Ganassi, McLaren, if you're going from a Penske car, do you take that deal with Rahal? And I think Rahal's deal would probably have to involve a good chunk of change. Do you not just go find a sports car ride? I'm sure there's a manufacturer that would take them.
Is there? I mean, so kind of thinking through the wet grid and kind of looking at the opportunities that would be there. I guess there's a possibility that he could go to Jota, and because I think Jenson Button is...
Yeah, Jenson Button just got announced to be out.
Yeah, so Jenson Button's leaving. That would keep him in the General Motors family. Mm-hmm. That would potentially pair him with Sebastian Bourdais. I don't know what their relationship... I guess their relationship is probably good, right? They were both Champ Car drivers. So that would make some sense. I think Will Power did do like one Rolex 24 for Penske, like in 2009.
GP.
Yeah.
When Penske had that Daytona prototype.
That was a really weird year because they had to finish out like the Porsche RS Spider.
I just don't see any scenario where Will Power is out of IndyCar next year.
I don't either.
But I think it's a possibility.
And
I don't
know
see him leaving the States. Like he's
Yeah.
not going to leave his wife and kid. Like, and I don't think he's going to take them internationally. I just don't see him leaving the States. I would say this. I'd see him in NASCAR before I'd see him in sports cars.
Yeah, 'cause
That's
he
what I was
stayed
going to
with
bring up. I
Carolina.
know Townsend Bell brought it up on the broadcast about Scott McLaughlin, but I don't see any openings NASCAR-wise for anybody that's currently on the IndyCar roster to move over to NASCAR. Maybe something comes out of left field or somebody else within a team gets moved. But where we stand right now, I just don't see that happening. And when you look at it as far as Will Power, I also just ask, like, if this is set in stone that it's David Malukas, the trickle-down effect of this, David, that obviously opens up the 14 car. Could somebody like Miles Rowe be ready to go? If he's not, does Penske then cut ties with their affiliation with Foyt, who at times this year, most of the time actually, has kicked their ass? Do we see maybe some movement at Meyer-Shank has been mentioned? I don't see. Felix is 6th in points. Marcus Armstrong's having his best season so far at IndyCar. I don't see Meyer-Shank changing things up. Anything else out of left field? I mean, a 4th car at Andretti, maybe. But again, to me, I think Rahal, is starting to make the most sense on where Will Power will land.
It makes sense if nothing crazy happens.
Yeah.
I mean, there's always the possibility that something just absolutely insane will happen. But, I could see Scott McLaughlin running the Roval later this year if we're going to – if that's what Towns has heard, that would make a lot of sense. But I think the idea of him going full-time in NASCAR, like, I don't think Penske is going to completely clean house with all of their drivers. I think that would just be like, what are we doing, sort of a thing. So I don't see that happening. But, yeah, I think Will Power – of the options presented right this second, and we're assuming that nothing else crazy is going to happen, Rahal makes a lot of sense. But here's the other question I would have is if you're looking for cash for that car and Devlin doesn't have the cash for that car, can you land a sponsor for Will Power, or can you, is Louis Foster going to be able to bring that spot? Like, where's the money coming from for Will Power? Yeah. If you're going to bring him in, that's the one question I would have with Rahal.
There was one rumor that I read online, which obviously a great source, but they that because Devlin's on a multi-year deal, and because he is out of the leader circle, that would leave them able to get rid of him. I'm sure that has to be a clause, right? That would make sense.
Do you feel like you could go out and easily sell a sponsor? Not easily, but you can go out and have a better chance of selling a sponsor with Will Power, IndyCar winner, Indianapolis 500 winner, IndyCar champion in that car than, say, a Louis Foster or a Devlin DeFrancesco or anybody else who is not Will Power, because Will Power has the namesake and he's won races. And I think that he can, as you mentioned, David, win on a road or street course in a Rahal car.
Imagine if he took Verizon with him.
That was the one thing I was thinking too. That was the one thing I was thinking is if it somehow he managed to get Verizon away from, but like
that's a long partnership, those two together.
You know why it won't happen? Because Verizon has the Speedway.
Yep.
And ultimately, with that kind of leverage, Roger's not gonna get rid of it. Or they're not gonna lose Verizon because that's such a huge client of theirs. Like funding the car isn't a problem, So, and that's just how Penske works. That's how they operate. So I don't know.
Based on where we stand, David, and obviously there's, again, 9 to 10 different scenarios, but who do you see best fit for the 4 car at Foyt? Obviously, the rumor was Miles Rowe. Mm-hmm. Maybe you can go out and get somebody else. And I think it does kind of hedge on the fact if Penske decides to continue to give them, I believe, dampers and some other numbers and things like that, and continue that technical affiliation. Who do you think best lands in that 4 car? Because all of a sudden, now we've got a guy like Dennis Hauger, who only has to do is finish top 6 in the final 2 races to wrap up the championship. Even if he doesn't win the championship, he's not coming back to Indy next. And if he doesn't win the championship and Kyle Collette does, Collette's going to have to land somewhere as well. So let's go to the 4 car and AJ Foyt Racing. Who do you think best fits that scenario for 2026?
I mean, the more I think about it, the more my mind just keeps going to Miles Rowe. But
if you're Rinus VeeKay, do you leave the situation you're in for that car?
Depends if I have Penske dampers or not.
Yep.
I mean, if I can essentially run a satellite Penske car and maybe have an option to go there at some point, if I'm Rinus, sure. But I honestly think that Rinus has got a pretty good thing going at Dale Coyne. Like, you really need to. I mean, it would have to be a great opportunity for him to leave, I think.
The car we're talking about finished third in the Indy 500 this year, which is crazy. It's a good seat.
Yeah.
I think
well,
it's
finished second technically.
Oh yeah, I think I honestly think it'll be Miles Rowe, but if it's not, I could totally see it being Dennis Hauger. I think it's basically if Penske decides if Miles is ready for the jump. With how well he's done in the second half of the season, I don't think it would be. Everyone's talking about how every time I bring it up, it'd be kind of a early push to get Miles in there, and then he's not ready. But honestly, like, if you threw him in there and he has a season that looks a lot like Jacob Abel this year, why not? Right?
Well, I think
if it's not Miles Rowe, I think we see the same thing that kind of happened to Kyle Kirkwood, where Dennis Hauger will kind of get that seat with funding from Andretti, and we'll kind of sit on that for a year, and then when Ericsson's contract is over, we'll see the Eric Hauger go to the 28. Kind of give him a year like Kirkwood did.
We've discussed this many times on the show. 2 years ago, I would say there's no way Miles Rowe, he's not ready. Yeah, he wanted Iowa, but he's not quite ready. But then we've talked about it here on Unverified numerous times. The Nolan Siegels and the Kiffin Simpsons of the world, that even though they've had their learning and their growing pains, they've also shown signs of why they're in a race car. I mean, Kiffin on a podium this year. Nolan had a couple top tens last year. I think he has one this year. Yeah, I mean, that seems to be the pipeline, right? It's always since day one been, okay, when Malukas moves into that Penske car, is it and will it be Miles Rowe? I do think if we want to continue to kind of go through the paddock, there was some small rumblings midsummer that we could see maybe Colin Eilert part ways with Prema, but that dude's been on an absolute tear, a couple top six finishes over the last couple of weeks. I think Prema, unless they somehow sell to somebody, I think that they stay put. I mean, Short's been on the pole at the Indianapolis 500. That's like a podium at a road course, I would say, or any other race. The 51 car. I do believe the 51 car has the opportunity to be open. David, your thoughts? Have you heard anything? And could we see somebody move over and be Rinus's teammate, whether that's in the 51 or the 18?
Yeah, 51 car is absolutely in play for a variety of reasons. I think a lot of people are actually making a play for that charter, believe it or not. That's what I've heard quite a bit. We'll see if it actually sells. Who knows, or what percentage of it sells. But I know factually at least two different people have brought up to me interest in buying at least a part of the 51. So we'll see what happens. On the subject of Dennis Hauger, I've heard Juncos.
Yeah. So
we'll see. I mean, I think you'll see, because I think the general consensus, whether it's Foyt or whether it's Juncos, I think Andretti wants to kind of put Dennis Hauger on a shelf, much like they did with Kyle Kirkwood, because they don't have availability right now. Now, next year, when Marcus Ericsson's contract comes up, you will have availability. But if you want to put him on a shelf, but get him that experience, Juncos has kind of proven that they can be that place. So I wouldn't be surprised.
Who currently at Juncos is more likely to be learning dry and Reinbold for the month of May next year?
Wow. Wow, what a statement.
Well, we'll see what happens. I mean, again, I think a lot of it hinges on what happens with Prema, to be quite honest, and who buys what, if it is sold.
Ryan Reinbold almost won the 500 this year, by the way. I just got to.
Correct. Yeah. No, that was.
If Dennis Reinbold would just get off the horn there, they probably would have.
I'm telling you, we were all sitting there in the group chat because we obviously were sponsored by Capital.
We almost won the race.
Capital was on the side pod, and I'm sitting there with 20 laps to go going, oh my God, we're going to win. Like, I'm like, what do we do? Like, we're going to win the Indy 500. But no, that was an eventuality I had not prepared for. And I was like on the fly going like, what?
Another rumor mill type dude bro source, a friend of all of ours, great guy, and Don Cusick has mentioned that there is some news coming towards the end of the month. There has been rumors as far as it could be a partnership with McLaren, which would make some sense. Obviously, he's good friends with the CEO, or I think the former CEO now of Arrow. He's told me that he wants to do some stuff inside of Indy next as well. What are you hearing from our guy, Don Cusick, who I think has been great for the sport of IndyCar over the last couple of seasons?
Yeah, I think we're going to be seeing more of Don Cusick.
You smirked a little bit, David.
I don't know anything. I don't know. Rumors and speculation. I think he'll be, I think you're on the right track with what you said. We'll see. I think it would be, I mean, again, you mentioned his friendship with Mike Long. By the way, I don't think we're done at thermal. I think you'll see some thermal action next year, just not a race.
Yep. I would agree with that. Pack your bags when it's cold here, and we'll see where we end up.
Get ready to learn fault lines, buddy.
As far as Portland, as a dude bro source, schedule next year still hasn't came out. All signs pointing to Portland being back on that schedule. But here we are, mid-August, 2 races to go, and we haven't seen a sniff, unless you got daily downforwarded.
That was unfortunate. We learned who wasn't media literate.
They messed up one thing that really, so IndyCar's font is called Industry. It's a free Adobe font. It's free. They could that was the only thing.
They're not that smart.
I looked at it and I was like,
they didn't even put Milwaukee on the schedule either.
Would have got me. That would have got me. I would have been fooled. Industry, free Adobe font. That's my information to give to everybody now. If you guys want to go just haywire on social media, Industry, free font, Adobe, get it.
Well, and that other font is you got to use the F from the NBA Finals logo.
Oh, yeah. Oof. If you didn't see that in the Reddit, go see it. All I'll say is Lana. If you know what that means, I'll just say Lana. Anyway, another something else that I wanted to mention, and it happened last week, is obviously the fallout from the post with Palou Award, and we talked about it. The original post was deleted. The second post had more cars in it. I think I can speak for all three of us. It was unfortunate. It was a stray that was caught. We're not going to tell anybody to boycott the series, not buy the merch, none of that BS. Thankfully, it didn't hurt the rating, and we move forward. All right. I know we don't talk a lot of NASCAR, but my God, was it another shit show at Watkins Glen over the weekend. First and foremost, I know, Kyle, you know him better than anybody in the room here. Thankful Connor Zilich, although it's going to be a meme the rest of his career, which is fine. He's going to win enough races that he's going to be able to show that he can, and he already has this year, as we know. He won here at the Brickyard at Xfinity. But man, I was watching that live. That was scary.
And I had the
unfortunate
international feed up with the where it didn't cut the commercial, so it just sat there. That was scary. Yeah.
Wait a second. How did you get the international feed, Kyle?
I literally don't get the CW on anything that I have or have access to. So yeah, man.
You guys were you boycotting the Xfinity series, Kyle?
No, I was
they still had over 1 million fans to watch. I will say this, and call me old school. I do have a set of rabbit ears that you plug into the TV. I get CW clearly, and I get Fox live as it's happening, because I was watching your stream, David. I know YouTube is probably a little bit delayed, but I was like, "Oh man, I'm ready for it. It's coming in 25 seconds. David's going to react to this Connor Daly crash." I've already seen it, and I was typing away, and I think you probably saw you had to turn the chat off. But we got to get you guys some bunny ears. Austin Hill wrecking a bunch. Connor Zilich, SVG winning both races. Obviously, the least surprising thing I think we've ever seen, but. Another huge crash that Austin Hill was involved in, Watkins Glen. Man, I think we learned this week that, even if you're not on a high-speed oval, you can still have some pretty damn dangerous crashes.
Yeah, and shouldn't we be getting the penalty for Austin Hill for an intentional wreck again? Should he be sat for another race at least? Yeah. So I'm surprised we haven't gotten that yet. Kyle, I want to bring up something since we're talking about NASCAR, and you got in a little bit of hair. Hair splitting. The fur was flying on Twitter.
This is
as
a good
usual.
segue.
3
actually.
weeks in a row. Listen, I talk for a living. Kyle, you for I think the 3rd week in a row. I mean, it's unbelievable. You're on your Winsanity run on Twitter right now. It is amazing. You wouldn't believe it's amazing.
It's
You wouldn't
amazing.
believe it. Amazing. Kyle, explain why you were talking about talking about playoffs on Twitter.
Well, you're right, David. I had like 300,000 impressions on Twitter over 3 days of just having no life and having a weekend at home to watch racing. So I've been sitting on this video since June. We were all there at the Detroit press conference when Kirkwood said it. And someone asked him about playoffs. I don't know. I'm sorry. I apologize. Don't know who it was.
I think I clapped after that answer, and you're not supposed to clap in the press conference.
The poor guy. I heard, the poor guy. I don't know who he is. I'm sorry, but asked Kirkwood about playoffs, and Kirkwood immediately told him no. And I saw somebody over the weekend at Portland in the bullpen ask Palou about playoffs, and he also said no. So I was like, this is my moment to go to the site and clip this, post it, and then because I think all three of us are in agreement of no playoffs. I think we all hate playoffs in racing. Tony likes playoffs. Tony, wait.
I do not like playoffs, but I would not be surprised if Fox puts it on the table.
Okay, but so
because it ain't going to make a difference. If this dude's going to be on the generational run that he's on, hi, Boris. If this is going to be on the generational run that he's on, it ain't going to matter anyway.
It's just going to be stupid. You can't do that because because in one of those years, we're going to get to a point where Kirkwood or Palou should be like a 10-time champion, and then let's say Kirkwood steals it in Nashville 2 out of the 3 years, and then he's an 8-time champion. We always have to have that conversation. Screw that. I don't want that. So, in knowing that it was going to blow up on Twitter, I decided to go straight to the front
in-season tournament.
Everybody saw that. Everybody saw that Kirkwood video. I saw it posted on so many different other platforms. I was so proud because I was like, yeah, this is what we got to do. We got to be on the front lines fighting for no playoffs. That's absolutely what I was intending to do, and I did it. So
Kyle won the neurodivergent trophy of the weekend for remembering something from a press conference from Detroit. I mean, that's
I've been sitting on that the whole time. I remembered that moment. I took it, put it in the back of my head, and I was like, we're gonna save that for a good time, and I did.
I
cashed in.
He cashed in the money in the bank.
Had the money in the bank.
I
can't believe playoffs.
And hey, by the way, I can't believe that nobody else posted that. And I was sitting in that press conference. I was waiting on that. How was I the one? Like, how many?
I don't know. That Detroit presser after the race was so mind-boggling for so many different reasons. I mean, you talk about scrambled eggs in my brain. I was like 9 Fagos deep, about to fall over, and then some guys started screaming into the microphone, and it was freaking brutal. I don't know. I don't mind some changes. I don't want to see a playoff, but I want to see more emphasis maybe on qualifying. I think that could make Saturdays a little bit more. Obviously, you're always going to go for the pole, and you're trying to make it, but maybe some more points added to that, especially Indy 500 weekend, where if we're not going to set a speed record as far as the pole goes at Indy, maybe we spice. I'm not saying like a dual race. I'm just saying maybe we have some points on the line, something a little bit more than $100,000, which was the same purse that the pole sitter got in 1994. And hell, Al Jr. even got that Astro van to put his kids and do laps around 465 in.
Listen, there's so much that needs to change and so many things that we could try. Any format changes or extra points events in playoffs are the last thing that we should be talking about. Yeah. That is the last thing the sport needs. And there's a lot of people, I feel like there's probably a lot of people higher up that don't realize that. I feel like the people in the IndyCar side and in the technical side understand it. I think Doug Bowles understands it for sure. I think I'm not really scared. I'm scared of maybe the people who haven't been around as long, like Fox, making that change. And look, that's the last thing we need to think about. Maybe we can try, if we try a million things in the direction of, what time we're running races, dates, tracks, other engagements, and then that doesn't work, then maybe we can talk about playoffs. If everything else doesn't work, maybe we can talk.
How would
better marketing in a new car goes a long way to this argument.
Well, I'll start holding my breath. When's 2028? That's a while off, isn't it? I mean, let me ask a question real quick about playoffs, because I like this is the big thing for me is like I don't even know how it would work. Like the only thing that I could come up with, even if you did it, would be like you're gonna have an extreme. Like you already got a very short. Like aren't we only at like really 16 races? I mean, right? Like there's one doubleheader, so I guess it's technically 17, but it's 16 races, and so you want to. So I don't know how long the playoffs would be. NASCAR's playoffs are 10 weeks long. 10 weeks. Like that's first and foremost, that's insane. That's already too long. But okay, so like, would you do a 4-week playoff? And even if you did a 4-week playoff, like the only thing that would make sense for me to do would be to do a one race at every type of track. So you would need a street course, you would need a road course, you need a super speedway, and you need a short oval. And good luck getting that all, worked out. So, and then would you do eliminations? I don't think you should. And the whole thing doesn't make any, like it literally does not make any sense. It's just the entire IndyCar season is almost as long as the NASCAR playoffs are.
Yeah. The way it would probably have to work, I'm even scared to say this because I'm terrified, is it would have to be like the original chase where you probably just do like 5 races and
all 5 at the IMS road course. Run the F1 configuration. But
like, here's like
turn the sprinklers on down the backstretch.
This just like speaks volumes to like where we're at in modern motorsports and what NASCAR has done to kind of brainwash everybody. It's terrible. Like honestly, IndyCar has been on this long hot streak for years for having the championship go to the final race. Even last year, where Palou was pretty much out of reach, it came down to the final race where if Howard doesn't have a seatbelt issue, it's probably a compelling championship fight. And then we have one freaking year where Palou wins the championship with 2 races ago. Everyone's freaking out because nobody's seen it before in this generation because NASCAR's ruined it.
First time it's happened since Cristiano D'Amata in 2002, by the way, that someone clinched the title.
Everyone's freaking out about it. They don't watch F1, obviously, actually watch it. But
don't fix it if it's not broke. And as far as playoff goes, don't do it because, as you mentioned, Kyle, it's still coming down to the wire. Besides this generational run that we've seen Alex Palou, and I'm just not ready for an Alex Palou named playoffs because he had this dominant year. And even if he dominates this time next year and he's in the same boat, I still am not going to vote for a playoff because I just don't think, like David said, logistically, it doesn't work. And I don't think if we had a playoff right now, it was going to make a difference because Palou is still going to win the damn thing anyway.
Yeah.
Ryan Robertson has a great point, and I want to kind of point this out, because I've been pointing it out since whenever people started complaining about Palou. I think it was really Barber, but they were complaining about it from the very beginning of this year. And I feel like, again, I was like a little kid when a lot of this stuff was happening. But I remember when Alex Zanardi just dominated everything. And then he left. He was gone. And guess what we did? We put him on a pedestal and we said, Alex Zanardi was so awesome. Oh, I loved that era so much. It was so awesome. Alex Zanardi was clinching championships. I think in 1998, he clinched it 4 races before the season ended. We're sitting around here saying, oh, Alex Palou, it's so boring. But we are going to look back on this someday. And I thought about this when I was at Laguna Seca, because yes, I could have sat there and cynically been like, oh, I flew to California to watch another Alex Palou win. But I was sitting there going, you know what? It's kind of cool to see this level of dominance in an era and in a format of IndyCar racing, which is supposedly closer than it's ever been before. To see a driver dominate in this fashion, I think is exceptional. And I think it's, and again, he is such a talent that, I don't think he's guaranteed to stay here. I think there is a possibility, no matter how slim it is, and no matter how much he says he wouldn't go, if a top team in Formula One offers to put him in a seat, he'll be there, right? So, that's what we're sitting here waiting for. Here's one point I wanted to make about Alex Palou before we go off the air. It's just something I thought about, and I didn't throw in my video, and I probably should have. Something I've always really appreciated about Alex Palou, and I will appreciate it probably for the rest of my career, is that we as the media, and that includes the 2 people in this call as well, We ripped the ever-loving shit out of him for that contract stuff. We made him the biggest joke, the biggest meme, the butt of every joke. We said how stupid he was for making these decisions and like, what are you thinking? You're throwing away your career, kid. What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? You know what Alex Palou didn't do? He did not shy away from the media. He spoke to all of us through the entire process, held zero grudges, continues to be the number one guy speaking to the media. Like, he goes to media obligations that he's not even supposed to be at just because he's like trying to further the sport. So that's something that I will always appreciate about Alex Palou, is that he had the balls to face everybody when he was making big mistakes, and he's never held grudges against anyone in the media for, rightfully so, ripping him for bad decisions, because obviously he's made right on those.
To Alex Palou, I will use his favorite word, amazing, because we talked 2 years ago at Road America, and I was like, do you realize like the top 10 streak that you're on, which is still hard to do. It's not the greatest stat in the world, no. But I was like, you see, like, your consistency is like incredible. I think what did he average in his last championship run, like 8.3 or something? It's probably better this year, his finishing percentage. The guy has been awesome. He is one of the nicest guys that I've ever met inside of a paddock, inside of any racing form, and inside of any sports locker room, grid, media bullpen, whatever you want to say. He answers everything. He's fun. He's funny. He really is funny. Like, if you get talking like he does to us, he is hilarious, especially like with the Red Solo Cup. I thought he really embraced that back at Road America. Obviously, ultimately ended up winning that race. But like, you're right, David. We don't know how long this is going to last. We have to realize, as the hardcore race fans, I think some of the casual race fans don't want to see this domination. Just like they didn't want to see Tom Brady and the Patriots continue to dominate, just like they didn't want to see the Warriors or the Bulls continue to dominate. But I think as this doesn't come around that often. Like, this 10 car has kind of, been crap since going back to probably when Dario got into that accident. It was 6-7 years where I don't think they won a race until Felix won the one race in 2020. So what he's been able to do, what he's been able to accomplish, what he's been able to move forward and get past all of the distractions with McLaren and the contract and all that BS. The guy is absolutely amazing. And we've talked about this all year on the show, on my podcast. And I think the hardcore fans, especially, and I hope the 235 that are listening to us right now live, which we appreciate you spending your Tuesday night with us. We're witnessing greatness, and I appreciate it. And I'm not going to take it for advantage. I'm not going to take it for granted.
Yeah, I was a little. I remember it. I loved it because I was a Dario fan, but I don't feel like I appreciated the Dario area enough. And now we are pretty much on an identical streak. It was one championship, an off year, and then 3 straight, identical to Dario's 08 to 2011 run. It's incredible. And you just spurred a thought. I guess we'll close on this because I don't have much else to say. How do you think Ed Jones feels right now watching this?
Yeah, wow. and it's crazy too, because there is a point where Chip wanted Renus, and this, could this be Renus? We're not sure. Canes, Cat, and Heat, congratulations to Max Garcia. Okay, yeah. He won. Good USF Pro 2000. Great. We'll see him move up.
I was going to mention that at some point. Canes, Cats, he has been talking about Max Garcia this entire show, but I
absolutely glazing
out. I want to point out the champions in the lower categories. Jack Jeffers this weekend.
Yep.
Won for Exclusive Autosport in USF 2000. That's awesome. Jack's a kid from karting that I remember. I was just talking to him at Mid-Ohio about how when he was about to win his first race and then didn't, I was the one that got it all on video and was able to out him for that embarrassing moment at Rock Vegas 21. So another karting kid going up to Indy Pro. And then Max Garcia, another kid that I remember coming through karting. He's actually a decent talking point when it comes to Miles Rowe and that whole saga, because he's been sponsored by Advanced Autos parts throughout his way up, and I believe that does come from Penske. So he'll be making his way to Indy next year. So that's something to keep an eye out on if Miles Rowe gets bumped up, because then Penske would have another.
You don't run 3 years in Indy next unless you're like Christian Vogel.
Yeah. Ooh.
$1.5 million a year, everybody.
I wanted to mention this. Sorry, Kyle, if you're done.
Yeah, I don't know. Good.
I wanted to mention this. It was mentioned in the chat. Connor Daly currently 19th in the standings. He's got a 12-point cushion to 20th, which is Marcus Ericsson, who has a 14-point cushion over Nolan Siegel, who is 21st, who has a 4-point cushion over Colin Eilot, who is 22nd, who has a 2-point cushion over Louis Foster, and an 8-point cushion over Robert Schwartzman, who is 24. So somebody had asked where we stand with the final 2 ovals, because remember last year we were kind of figuring out, all right, who's going to make it, what's it going to look like, and it did become a storyline, I thought, because Ed Carpenter pulled himself out of the race car, Christian Rasmussen put that team into the leader circle.
Connor
was right there, which obviously kind of cemented his run to come back this year. So plenty to dive into. Thank you so much for spending your Tuesday night with us. Yeah, shout out to G3 Argos. Yeah, his mom owns a great we got to get them to sponsor a great energy drink.
And shout out to Milka Duno, the actual driver of the number 4 next year. You heard it here first. Milka Duno is coming back, everybody. That's McLaren's big driver. They're going to run Milka Duno in a 4th car. You heard it here first. Sitgo is coming back, baby. Let's go.
Yeah, EJ Viso is going to be her spotter, right? It'll be all the Sitgo.
Oh, my God. Well, they won't last a lap. They're going to get into turn 1. They're going to crash the whole field.
That's a lot of blow coming over the border. Anyway, we are Unverified. Thanks so much for watching as we do every week here on Tuesday night. It's the truth. I mean, what do you want me to say? It's the truth.
They call us Unverified for a reason. It's fine.
That is for sure. So thank